Hello, my name is Zach Van Sliders with Old Man Gaming. You've decided to tune into another horrible game review. Today's game is Bleeding Edge, and I gotta say, I have been putting off doing this review as much as humanly possible, and you guys are gonna understand why as we get into it. But before we do, just want to get into disclaimers. Number one, I do not do scored reviews for my games. I don't believe in them. I think video games are one of the most subjective forms of art. And because of this, I will give you a overview of the game, what it is. Then I will tell you the pros and the cons of that game, in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you whether or not I'm going to stick with the game past the actual playing of it for this review. So what is Bleeding Edge? Bleeding Edge is a 4v4 multiplayer hero melee game. Basically what happens is most of the characters are relatively close range. Even the ranged characters tend to be closer ranged. You kind of go in as a team, kind of feeding off each other's strengths and weaknesses as characters. Team management is key. Actually, too much key. We'll talk about that later. Now, the game is, as far as story goes, everybody's like weirdly cybernetic and they don't really explain why they're fighting or what the world's like. So there's not much to that. There are two modes that you'll play. One is power collection, which basically these random areas with power cells in vats form, which you have to break the vats, collect the power cell. If any of the opponents kill you, you drop the power cells. And then basically that's one phase. Then another phase starts in which you have to deliver the power cells to one of the areas that highlights, which means that you have to stand on the area without being hit or attacking while the power cells kind of get deposited in the bank. The other mode is much more straightforward. It is objective control. Basically, there are three places in which a controlled objective can pop up, and it can be up to three. So it could be just one, it could be two, it could be three, and any combination in between. And then your team has to capture that point and hold that point, and that's how you earn points. You get bonus points for getting kills on the opponent's team while you're doing that, and then that's it. That's the game itself. Much like in a lot of ways, this game has been compared to like Overwatch. It's also been compared to MOBAs. I like to compare it actually to For Honor because Ubisoft's, third-person fighter type game, medieval fighting type game. I mean, very different vibes, but in a lot of ways, I feel like they're comparable. So that's the game. That's the game in a nutshell. So let's get into the pros and cons. I'm going to start positive first. Unfortunately, I have a lot of negative. Now, first of all, positive, this game has a lot of potential. It had potential before. I was pleasantly thrilled by all the closed beta stuff I played. You can go back and look at my first impressions. The other thing is this game is very original. There's the character models, the world building. It's very different from anything you're going to see out there. Plus, as far as the 4v4 melee-based but hero-type, shooter-type thing, it's different. It's unique. So let's go into cons because that's all the positives I have. I'm not happy with this game. I really want to be happy. I want to say this to everybody out there before I get into this because when I go negative on a game, I tend to get some hate. And I understand that. If you love a game, you don't want to hear somebody bashing it. I do just want to point out this is my opinion. So should you not like what I'm saying, just remember I'm just one idiot in a basement trying to help you guys pick what games you should spend your time on. So with that said, cons. All right, I'm going to start with the most obvious and biggest con. And that is this game is a math equation in game form. Let me break that down for you. So when you get into a fight in, let's say, another game, let's use For Honor, for example, because I've played a lot of that. If you get into a fight 3-on-1, you're probably going to die. You're probably going to get your butt kicked. It does not mean you can't pull it out if you're really good and they're not as good. And that's great. It means that you can go into a game with a bunch of randos, and if your team is not strong, your team overall will lose, but you can still feel good about your performance. This game doesn't have that. This game is, if you go into a fight with one less person, you are going to lose. If you go into a fight without a healer, you are going to lose. That causes a real problem for me in the game. It makes it nearly impossible to play with randos, which even more so with other factors that we're going to talk about in a second. But one of the things that is truly, truly irritating is it doesn't make you feel like, even when you're doing good, it doesn't make you feel like you're doing good or accomplishing anything. It just feels like your math equation is better than the other team's math equation. Sure, you can hit the abilities at the right time, hit the attacks at the right time. There's a little bit of strategy to it, but there's not enough variation that makes you feel like you're doing anything great. You just pick a role. Hopefully you pick the right role. And if you win, great. If you lose, you lose. And that's the problem. There's this kind of monotony to it that is irritating. There's also a complete and total lack of an ability to be a hero on your team or to get any vindication. This kind of dovetails into my next problem with the game, which is if you're on a team with less players, you're going to lose. And because of that, if your team is already losing, I can't count the number of times people rage quit. And unless my team was winning, the game was over long before we ever got to the end, because one or two of my players would drop out. The minute they dropped out, we lost every fight we got into. It basically becomes you just getting mobbed by 3 to 4 other players at all times, and that's just not fun. That, in addition, we're going to go into the next one, which is there's no role queue, meaning there's no way to force any players to play a certain type. So you've got your tank, your support, and your DPS builds. There's 3 supports. There's no way to get anybody to play the supports, and the supports can be kind of boring because you're just healing other people. You're not really doing any significant damage. With that said, if you don't have somebody playing a support, nobody is forced to play support, you will lose. That's another frustrating thing about this game. It's hard for me to be, this is a real hard thing for me to critique, because it's very obvious that Ninja Theory wanted it to be this way. They wanted it to be all about very cohesive team play. But that just doesn't work in any setting other than a competitive tournament that is organized, like for Overwatch and that stuff. But even with those games, there's an ability to like get a couple of kills on your own, even if you're, standing against the waves or outnumbered. There's no way to do that in this. There's no way to be a hero. There's no way to get that vindication. And because of that, the game is over before it even starts. And that's the problem. That's the math equation thing that I was kind of feeding into in the beginning. Then we have to go into the fact, and I really don't want to mention this because I know the Ninja Theory is actually working really hard on this, but the connectivity and stability issues are a serious problem. So you're going to see some real messed up footage in my review. Just to give you an idea, I spawned into a match. My team had 4 people. One of them dropped out before the match began. So we all just got stuck in the fence waiting for another person to jump in, which in a way I'm thankful for, because if that person hadn't jumped in, we would have immediately lost, like I said. But you can see we're just sitting around waiting for another person to come in. I didn't actually capture this next problem, but I want to say probably like 3 out of the 10 times that I got to play matches, I would spawn into a match as the match was ending. Like, I had no control over it. I spawned in, I picked my character, I dropped in, and it said defeat or victory. that wouldn't be something that bothers me if you stayed with your party, but you don't. You get immediately kicked out to the title screen and has to requeue with a whole new team. So you have that problem as well. That just kind of compounds everything I was talking about earlier. Unfortunately, the cons don't stop there, because while there's no role queue forcing you to play a certain role, there is, however, a restriction on how many people can play one character, meaning only one person can play one character. So if you have a favorite, chances are you're not going to get to play them every time. Now, while I understand what Ninja Theory is trying to do here, they've done this in other games, not Ninja Theory, but other games like this, hero shooters like this, like Paladins, has made it so that you can't play a ton of the same character and overwhelm things. At the same time, this is super irritating because they don't have a ton of characters. Paladins has like 20 plus characters. This game has like 12. With that in mind, like, it's very easy for your favorite character to just immediately get picked by somebody else, and then you don't get to play who you want to play. That's not fun. I know that's not fun for me. I would prefer it to be something more like For Honor, where anybody can just pick, like, you could have a team of 4 gizmos or whatever. I don't understand why that would necessarily be broken right off the bat. I feel like they would kind of hamstring themselves because they need a support character. Another con, and I know I'm really piling on here, but like I said, I did not want to be negative on this. I'm an Xbox guy. I really wanted to like this game. That's why I put it off so much. That's why I kept going back to it, but just can't find the positives. But another problem is the ranged-based characters in this, the few characters who do attack at ranged, have a severe advantage over the melee characters. I hate to be that guy. I know a lot of people are like, oh, no, they're balanced. They're balanced. They're not balanced. Because, especially in a game like this, because the game is all about the mob fight. So when you've got a 4-on-4 situation, the ranged person sits on the outside and whacks away at the bad guys, and it totally destroys them, or at least leaves them open for the in the fight characters to wail them out. So if there's not ranged characters on either side, the side without the ranged character loses every time. So that's the problem with this game. That is the balancing. It's just too severe. There's not enough defensive options. There's not enough options for you to actually like fight out of a hole. You just go in and you get killed by 4 people, and that, or you win, but in winning, it's just the 4 of you beating on 3 people, and that's not fun either. And that's my problem with this game. I feel like it needs a complete and total rebalance and retooling. And honestly, I did not know this stuff. I didn't notice this stuff in the closed beta. I didn't feel it was like this bad in the beginning, and I think maybe that's because everybody playing the closed beta was also new to it. But now that they've gotten into it, we're seeing this more. And like I said, I have a big problem with the community as well. In addition to people just dropping out on me most games, in other words, like any game we were losing for any significant time, immediately somebody would drop out, and then we were definitely done. So whatever restriction they're putting or whatever penalty they're putting on people for dropping out, it's not enough. And then on top of that, 2 other games I was in, the other players just bitched about me and another player the entire time. And hey, maybe I was doing something wrong, but the way to get me to stay in the game is not to whine about me and insult me. It's to maybe say, hey, dude, maybe you should try playing it this way. Try and help your fellow players. This game it's got a bad community, and it's not doing well. And I don't know. From what I've seen on Twitter, other people tend to agree with me. It definitely hasn't exploded the way a lot of people thought it was going to after the closed betas. So maybe I'm completely wrong. In any case, whether or not I'm going to stick with it, most certainly not. I am done with this game. It has burned me too many times since the closed beta. I loved it in the closed beta, and then every time I've picked it up since then, it's burned me. It's just burned me with connectivity issues, bad community, bad balancing, and just not fun. If I'm going to play something, I want to play something that's fun, and I don't have fun playing this. So, but hey, maybe you have fun playing it. Maybe you like playing it. And if that's the way, go out there and play it. Don't let me stop you. But as far as me goes, this is not the game that I'm going to be playing. So hopefully this review helps you. Hopefully you don't totally hate me because of this negativity of this review, but like I said, I just have to call them like I feel like I see them, and this is the way I see it. So either way, whether you love me or hate me, you can definitely comment on anything below, or you can comment on my Facebook page at Old Man Gaming DH. I'm also on Twitter at Old Man Gaming 9, and feel free to join our Discord and bitch about me there as well. The link is posted in the description below. And as usual, as long as you guys keep watching and listening to these, I'll keep making them. And again, sorry to be so negative on this one, but I just didn't see another way around it. So see you guys next week.